All right, so today we are watching a video called Real Life Psychic Spy Hostages, Crucifixion, Three Eye Atlas, and Channeling. Angela Ford. So, this guy right here is interviewing a girl named Angela Ford who was a literal psychic spy for, like, I guess the government, CIA, FBI, something like that. So, this should be pretty interesting. Let's get into it. Hey.
Angela Ford, thank you so much for coming here and finally being able to sit down with me and have a conversation. I'm so excited to have you. Welcome.
I am so excited to be here. We've had some problems with me getting here, but I am so happy to be here. And thank you for the opportunity.
Absolutely. I have so much I wanted to talk to you about. And, prior to this, we were sharing a coffee and I was biting my tongue the whole time because we got to save some of this for the podcast. You were involved in one of the most important, in my opinion, one of the most important programs that the U.S. government's ever funded, which was the Stargate program. But prior to that, you were also working in intelligence for the government. Could you fill us in a little bit about your history prior to entering Stargate?
Okay. Well, first of all, when I was very young, I would say 4, 5, 6 years old, I had a lot of out of body experiences.
Okay.
So I knew what out of body was, and I used to have dreams, and sometimes my dreams would come true. So I would tell my mother, and my mother would listen. So she never told me that she never discouraged anything. So as I got older, there were times that I may have had psychic experiences, but I never really talked about it. Um, and my mother was very, she had an interest in the occult. I can remember her buying magazines and books, and I think she did. She bought an encyclopedia of the occult that's still at my house.
Really?
So she had an interest, but she was actually very psychic, which we found out years later. So I grew up in a small town in western Pennsylvania. It was in Indiana County. In Indiana, Pennsylvania was where Jimmy Stewart was born and raised. I went to the local college there. It was called Indiana University of Pennsylvania, and I received a degree in political science. Now, the year that I graduated from college, I didn't have a job. I didn't know what I was going to do. So there was a night you can take these nighttime classes. I think they cost like $35 for 6 weeks. And there was a chemistry professor that taught at the university, but he held a night class in ESP. So I took his class. Well, what
That's
happened
dope.
was, is I applied to the FBI. My sister had a criminology degree, so we applied to go to Washington D.C. to work for the FBI, and I had to quit the class because I received a nighttime job, so I had to quit the class because I had to go to work to make the money so I could come down to D.C.
Well, and the FBI job had nothing to do with the ESP stuff.
No,
Just
nothing.
totally
No.
unrelated.
Yeah, my sister wanted to be a cop, but she wanted to be, but in Pennsylvania, the state police academy in Pennsylvania didn't have the funds and it wasn't opening up for a couple of years.
See.
So we decided the FBI may be a better way to go. So we came down and we worked for the FBI, and it had nothing to do with anything being psychic. And the FBI didn't pay me that much money. And I worked with a woman whose husband was in Army intelligence, and she left. She left the FBI, and she called me about one or several months later, and she told me that the Army intelligence was looking for political science with people with political science degrees. They were offering them internships for 2 or 3 years. So I applied, and they hired me. Now, I think they hired me because I already had a clearance.
Mm.
So it was easy just to transfer me over, because if you have to do a background investigation and get someone a clearance, it costs a lot of money.
And that was just a secret clearance?
No, it was higher than that.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
What clearance was it?
SCCI.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So,
Okay.
I went to Army Intelligence, and they had me on an internship for I think 3 years. And what I needed to learn was how the intelligence community works. So they sent me to different offices, and I took different classes. And you learn how you collect information, how you analyze it, how you disseminate it, how you write papers for policymakers, and then at the end of the 2 to 3 years, they give you a job. And and I ended up at the end of 3 years being a Central American analyst during the early 1980s, which was exciting because you had Noriega, you had the Sandinista brothers in Nicaragua, the
I don't know who
communists.
these people
There
are.
was there was insurgencies in El Salvador and Honduras,
Mm-hmm.
and it was just it was a hotbed. It was a
Hotbed.
hotbed.
Exciting time to work in a place like that. Probably, never a dull moment.
Yes, and that every week I would have to give briefings to the general staff, to the general and the general staff of the recent. So I liked it. I liked it. So this must have been around 1983. So I was working as an analyst, and my mother had called me one night, and she said that it was the fall, and she said, I'm looking for something to do. I want to take a class. So I told her and her friends decided to take that ESP class from the professor at the university. So I told her, I said, just take that ESP class, you'll like it. Well, my mother and two of her friends took it, and what they found out was my mother was really good at psychometry, where you could hold an object and tell, like if you had somebody's psychometry, that you could hold
Right.
like the jewelry, like a ring or a watch, and you
Yeah.
could tell all you could
Get information
yeah,
from
yeah.
that.
Yes. So
Interesting.
yeah. So my mother, she was good at that. So um, my father died during that time, and I was having a very difficult time with his death. And my mother sent me a book, and it was called A World Beyond by Ruth Montgomery. And she said, read this book. It will help you understand your father's death. Well, Ruth Montgomery she did automatic writing. She was a channelist. So I read this book and I just resonated with it. It's sometimes just think I just resonated with the book, and I said, I think I'm going to try this automatic writing. And I did. And I started to get information about what happens to some, when you go beyond the veil. Um, I was receiving information about relatives, both, on both sides.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just receiving information, and I liked it. So so my sister also started the automatic writing, and my sister was taking an astrology class at the time because we always had the interest in the paranormal. At some point, it was always in and out of our lives.
Sure.
So her astrology teacher,
He got that crazy hunch right now, bro. He is like into this conversation. Like, you see that? Back about to be hurting after this shit, man.
knew that we were doing automatic writing, and she said we were doing it about a month, and the
Yo, look
lady
at that
told my
hunch.
sister, she said both of you should attend the Fred Mansbridge Institute. He had a metaphysical he taught metaphysical classes in Alexandria, Virginia, so I
Mm.
started to study with Fred Mansbridge. Now, unbeknownst to me, during that time, I had found out that Army Intelligence had these remote viewers sitting at Fort Meade that was remote viewing it. I'm like, well, why didn't I know this? Well, because it was a special access program. It was compartmentalized, and if I didn't have the need to know, I was not going to know about it. So I approached the General Stubblebine
How did you hear about this?
through. Oh, this is how I heard about it.
Because it
General
was like, that was like mum's the word on that type of stuff. Special access programs are.
This is how I heard about it. Um, no matter who the general was, they inherited that program. If you whatever general was ahead of Army intelligence, they inherited the program. But in the early 1980s, a man by the name of General Bert Stubblebine came along, and he was interested in this stuff anyway. And he would bend spoons, and he had a man, Colonel John Alexander, who would walk on fire. And they were always looking for people that, expand your mind. They want, soldiers that, use your mental abilities. So they were taking trips on weekends down to the Monroe Institute because the Army intelligence was stationed in Arlington, Virginia. So on a Friday night, they would pick you up on the bus and take, I don't know if it was a 2-3 hour drive, and then they would come back on a Sunday evening. So you had this, you had a chance to go down to the Monroe Institute. Mm-hmm. So I said, well, sign me up. I want to go. Well, the first time I was on the list, there was a woman who, her name was Charlene. She put me on the list. Well, she called me up and she said, I have to take you off the list because some colonel from Hawaii is flying in from that command and he wants to go to Monroe. So I was taken off the list. Mm-hmm. So then the second time I was supposed to go, I got a call and they said, you're taken off the list again. So I said, okay. Well, then the third time,
I'd be mad. Like,
she called me into
get me
the
on the
office,
list, bro.
into where she did the list, into her office, and she said, okay. She said, this isn't really fair to you.
Exactly.
But I'll fight for you to go this time. They were going to take me off the list for the third time.
See, because they didn't want to have to read you into the program.
No, because people higher rank were overriding me to go.
Right. Okay, I see.
This had nothing to do with the remote viewers at Fort Meade.
I see. It was detached.
It was separate. It was totally separate.
So you had no idea about Stargate at this point?
No, I still didn't know anything about Stargate. I just thought that Stubblebine was, he just wanted people with these abilities. It was a free ride down to Monroe. Monroe cost a lot of money. What a way to, it would have been a great opportunity. No, the reason I kept been taken off the list is because other people that overranked me,
high-ranking people. I see.
Like if a colonel was going to fly from Hawaii, so
I mean, it must have been quite popular if all of these high-ranking officials were going to Monroe. I mean, there must have been something to it.
I think so. Or I don't know if they were interested or if they were just trying to please the general, too.
I see. Yeah.
I don't know.
Good point.
I don't know. But I think the third time I looked at the list and there were two people that I worked with and they were going and I just didn't want to go with them. I felt like I just didn't feel comfortable. So I said, no, I didn't want to go. So then eventually, I don't know how I think it was Charlene or there was another girl and they had talked about the psychics at Fort Meade or the remote viewers. And I was just surprised. So I kind of approached the general to see if I could get involved. But he said he was retiring. It was in 1984. And he was retiring. He lost support from the Joint Chief of Staff at the Pentagon. I think he was told to cease and desist. And so he retired so that he could get out and still do his, he still wanted to do the paranormal act.
What was the reason that he was getting flack? Was it the MK Ultra stuff? Was it?
No, what happened was there was there's a Joint Chief of Staff at the Pentagon for intelligence. And there was one man that held that position for a long time. And there was a young captain, Skip Atwater, Fred Atwater. Okay. Fred Atwater had a very high interest in ESP. So he kind of whispered in this guy's ear and said, we should have military officers use psychics. So the guy said, okay, let's try it. So I think at first they were using remote viewers on a part-time basis. And then I think in 1976, it was the first operational, they found an aircraft. And so
the one in Africa?
Yes.
Yeah.
And at that point, they decided to use remote viewers full time, and it would come under Army intelligence.
Oh, that's when they transferred it over. Yeah, because prior to that, it was like Sunstreak and Center Lane and Grill Flame.
That was all under Army intelligence.
Right.
Because of this Joint Chief of Staff said, okay, we'll do it. Well, But then what happened was, I guess he retired or stepped down, and the new person that took his place just didn't want any part of it.
Ah, I see.
So this was in 1984, and General Stubblebine was like, then I'll just retire, because he really was interested in the whole. He said, I'll just go out and start my own company.
Yeah, he was very gung-ho about this stuff.
Yeah. And so I thought, well, there goes my chance. So I didn't understand this, but this is how it all fell out, which I didn't know at the time. Now, you had Army intelligence, and they had the remote viewers. Well, in the meantime, you had the Defense Intelligence Agency. There was a man there by the name of Dr. Jack Verona, who was a scientist. And Dr. Verona was giving small contracts to SRI to start looking into paranormal research.
Really?
So, yeah, it was small contracts. It wasn't a lot, but he was funding SRI. There was a man down in Ohio. He worked for the Foreign Technology Division. His name was Dale Graff, and Dale was very psychic, and he did a lot with dreams. And when Dale won, he won an award, and he was going to get.
First things first, if people don't believe in psychic spies by now, bro, I don't know what to tell you, bro. Because nigga, shit, they real.
Was given a sabbatical, and he could do whatever he wanted to do in 1 year. So he wanted to go to Princeton. He wanted to go to Durham, North Carolina. He wanted to go to SRI.
Okay. All the hot spots.
All the spots we were doing parapsychology.
Wait, Durham is big for that? I ain't even know that. Wait till I tell my girl that shit. Okay, word.
Research. And when one of his bosses found out, they said, no, you're not going to do that. And they rescinded his.
Wow.
Yeah, they wouldn't let him do it. So when Dale was an analyst, and so Dale was watching what the Soviets were doing also, because he was a scientist. Dale was a scientist. So Dale was getting access through intelligence reports too of what the Soviets were doing.
Okay.
So, and I think he was giving the reports. He was ensuring that Dr. Verona was getting the reports. And so, the Soviets are doing it. We need to do it. And they would run to Congress, and we need money to do this. So when Dale's award was taken away, Dr. Verona said, well, why don't you just come work for me? And he did. Dale left Ohio. So you had Dr. Verona and you had Dale Graff at headquarters. They were funding the research, and they were also doing something. It was called foreign assessment, finding out what the other countries were doing.
Makes sense.
And it was mostly the Soviet Union, and there was Brazil and other countries, but it was really the Soviets
that were dabbling in psychic stuff as well.
They don't like them Russians.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Well, yeah, you looked at their cultures, like called Brazil, Portugal. So I guess this was in 1984, General Stubblebine retired. Now, because he retired and this program and these remote viewers were no longer going to exist, from what I understood is the remote viewers sitting at Fort Meade were sort of sitting around, and they were waiting for orders to find out where their next assignment was.
And who were these remote viewers?
They were mostly military.
Yeah.
They would have been
Joe McMoneagle.
It would have been Joe retired in 1984. It would have been Joe McMoneagle, Mal Riley, Lynn Buchanan. Fred Atwater was the operation.
So we already know these people? Like, it's already common knowledge who these people are? That's crazy. I did not know that.
Officer Ed Dames was a trainer. Bill Ray, he was a remote viewer, but he was the boss. You had a secretary there, Jeannie, and then we had Charlene there.
Me, nigga? I was there? Jeannie? Okay.
She was civilian.
So pretty tight. Pretty tight.
There was a girl named Jeannie, probably like Jea. Wait. No. Fuck it. However you spell that shit. Actually, no, yeah. Jeanie. Yeah, Genie. Yeah.
A crew.
And they, and, like if programs exist or whatever, they really, so they were sitting around thinking, well, where do we go from here? I think Charlene was in personnel. They would have found her something. Well, at that point, Dr. Verona went to Congress and said, please do not, he said, don't, leave the remote viewers operational and just transfer they called them billets, or transfer them from Army intelligence to DIA, which took about a year to do. So that would have been 1985, because in January 1986 I was
Transferred in.
yeah, Paul Smith came down and started interviewing me for the job.
So Paul Smith was head of making or vetting people.
I think he was the training officer, but I'm sure I got in by I got in by
From the general's
general.
recommendation.
Yes, and in January 1986 it started my process.
And that was it was still at this point, I guess, a special access program.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Wow. So now that you're in the club, how does that feel coming in from the outside, being interested in this stuff sort of tangentially? You're getting your feet wet, so to speak, with, automatic writing and hearing whispers of this remote viewing program. How is that feeling? First of all, as a woman coming into this place that's, pretty heavily male dominated at this point, what are you feeling?
Well, I had just left when I was hired by Army Intelligence, I had 3 years of an internship with military, and then I had the Central American analyst with the military. So I was used to the military thinking. I was a female civilian. They don't think it's a boys' club. They say that they're not prejudiced, but they are.
Sure.
So you feel it. You feel it that, the military's the military. I can remember working as a Central American analyst and having young female lieutenants coming into the program, and I had 4 or 5 years experience on them, and they were getting more respect than I was.
Because of the military.
They wore the uniform.
Yeah.
The females wore the uniform.
I see.
They were, everybody thought, oh, they're smart, they can do this, they can do that.
And you were treated as a civilian to them, sort of.
Yeah.
I see.
So by the time I went there, I knew the mentality. If anything, I was working at a higher echelon before I went.
That's right.
Before I went to the psychic program. So when they started their shenanigans, it was like amateur stuff. It was like amateur hour.
Yeah, that does make sense. Yeah, you were coming in from a pretty high position, TSSCI clearance, very sensitive stuff.
In briefing generals. I mean, just briefing generals. And I mean, it was tough. I remember one general, he told me I gave some information wrong, and I was right. I had an aviator go in and said, no, she's right. So I mean, it's tough. It was tough.
So now that you're in, what does the sort of first day on the job in terms of getting a target? Are they even giving you targets early on, or are they training you?
The training. First of all, you go in. Well, the first day I went in, there I was. I had studied at the Mansbridge Institute. I was doing the automatic writing, and actually I was starting to do psychic readings, although I wasn't charging people. My sister was working at a restaurant, and she would send people over to the apartment so I could give them readings. But so I went in. I felt like this is where I belonged. I felt like I was psychic, and this is where I belong. So the first day I went in, I was told that they said, we heard about you and that what you have is a bad habit. My automatic writing, my channeling.
Who said that?
Fred Atwater, Skip Atwater. He said, this is a bad habit, and we don't want you to do that here. We're going to teach you the right way on how to remote view. So by that time...
I wonder why they said that was a bad habit. I'm really curious. Like, is it because they just don't believe in it? Is it because they think that certain spirits might be able to hijack you and you're not seeing things clearly? Like, I wonder what that is.
had enough experience in the military, and I know that many times I have upset people, maybe by not following the chain of command or doing. I just had a way of I just had a way of upsetting people. So at that point, I just thought, you know what, just go with it,
Okay.
because I really wanted to be there.
Yeah. So you were willing to set aside what you had learned, and
I said, okay, teach me.
so how was, because I'd spoken to Ed Dames 2 years ago when we were doing this journey through remote viewing.
You gotta
And
watch
went
him now
down,
also,
met
huh?
him. He's in Northern California, I think near Sacramento or something. And
Man, everybody in California. Oh, I said California. So no, never mind. What I was about to say has no meaning actually.
sat with him and talked with him. And, he likes to talk. He's definitely very passionate about the remote viewing stuff, but he definitely has his own lane and like this is how we do things. Was he there while you were there?
Oh yes.
So was he
Niggas know
also
each other
against
and
the
shit.
automatic writing? Because I get that feeling like he.
Oh yes, he was definitely against it. He would stand. He would almost beg me not to do it. You shouldn't
Really?
do
Yeah.
that. Don't do that. Don't do that.
But why
he
though?
was hard nosed.
Like why they can't tell us why?
Interesting that he was hard nosed because he's also known for like remote viewing the Holy Grail and like.
Well, and the thing was when I went, there were books there like the. Do you remember Jane Roberts? She
Yeah.
did the Seth materials.
Yeah.
Well, that was trans-channeling.
Mm-hmm.
I'm making this because I don't really like books like that, to be honest.
Entity would enter her. Well, there were books there, and I'm like, well, surely they know about Seth and they know trans-channeling
Yep.
and they know so much. Why are they stopping me from doing what I'm doing? But because it
wasn't protocol.
because they were the military and they had the coordinate remote viewing.
Mm-hmm.
It was step by step that the manual that SRI told Ingo to do.
Right.
So no, they did not like it. They did not like.
So, okay, you learn this new technique to you, which has been, taught by Ingo to all of the.
No, I did not learn coordinate remote viewing. I learned extended remote viewing.
Ah, right. Yes.
And extended remote viewing was there before coordinate remote viewing.
What is
Yeah.
what's
And the
difference?
reason they put me in extended remote viewing because Ed Dames was training
I get coordinate, probably like targeting coordinates, but like what's extended? Though?
people
What's
in
that?
coordinate remote viewing, and he had he probably was training everybody, I think, at the time, except Lynn Buchanan and the boss, Bill Ray. Now, there was a man there by the name of Gene Lessman, and Gene was in Germany working, and when you're a civilian working overseas, you're only allowed to stay in that country for 5 years. His 5 years were up, so he called his friend Bill Ray and said, I need a job.
Okay.
I'm coming back to the States. I need a job. So Bill Ray said, well, come on, I'll give you a job. So Gene Lessman got in the program. Now, Gene Lessman was not psychic. I don't know if he had an interest or not, but I think what happened was that you had two trainers. You had Ed Dames and Gene Lessman, and Ed Dames had most of the, he was doing most of the training, and Gene didn't have anybody. So I came in, and I think because Gene needed somebody to train, they gave me to him.
Okay.
I see.
So it was so anyway.
Maybe for the best, though.
It was okay, but Gene gave me a hard time too. But I did extended remote viewing, and what I did prior to going to the program, I was waiting for my clearances to be passed from Army Intelligence to Defense Intelligence Agency. I bought a book, and it was called The Silva Mind Control by Dr.
okay.
Jose
I know that.
Silva.
I knew that.
Yeah, learning in your sleep and that type of stuff.
And like you meditate or you pull up the picture and you turn on the TV and then you look.
Yeah.
So I started practicing with that. I read it and I started to practice a little bit, but that's what extended remote viewing was. When they started training me in extended remote viewing, to me, it was just the Silva Mind Control.
I see, yeah. It
Wait,
was
what?
maybe them sort of branching out to a little bit more of an open mindset to...
Wait. I mean, I know about the book. I don't get what she means by that, though. Maybe I should read the book again to actually understand that.
Do this remote viewing stuff, because as you know now, and as I'm sure many other people know, there's more than one way to skin a cat when it comes to this stuff. Even you look at somebody who you mentioned, Lynn Buchanan, who I've never interviewed, but I'd love to talk to. He was on a show recently, a friend of mine's show, Michael Phillip, and he was talking about, the sort of telekinesis and things that he was into as well. Like he would walk into a room and this excited, I think, General Stubblebine at the time, or he fried all the computers or something. And the general was like, "Was this you?" And he was like, "Yes, sir, it was." And then the grin grew on the general's face. So, you and Lynn are in this.
We were the only ones brought in by the general.
Yeah, right. So he saw something special in both of you, I'm sure.
And I think they resented the fact that I was brought in by the general.
Oh, yeah, that played against you a little bit.
Oh, sure it did. But that didn't bother me at all because I've been around. By that time, I was around long enough that if somebody high up wants to pick somebody out and help them, they're going to do it.
That's how things work a lot of the times, right? But so you had to kind of earn your stripes, so to speak. What was the moment that for you that happened? Maybe not for anyone else, but for you, that you had a session or you had a mission or whatever that was. What was that like, and how did you get the results, and how did that make you feel?
Oh, you mean the first time?
The first time that really made you feel like, oh, we got this.
Well, it was training. They train you. So they were training me, and I think I did pretty good on the targets. I did the I think they were getting more excited than I was, but they, the targets were what I'm thinking of some of the targets. The St. Louis Ark, the big Ark, the Washington Monument,
the Devil's Tower, these type of things.
Like
Okay.
Yeah, they were okay, but it was okay.
But they were getting excited.
They were getting, if I would get it, they were getting excited.
Yeah, you go, girl.
Deal. I mean, I was doing it, but.
Were you secretly doing automatic writing during these sessions?
No, because Gene was with me. Gene would monitor me.
He was the monitor. I see.
Yeah, so I wasn't, but it was okay. But I felt what happened is I felt very alone and very isolated after a while, and I don't know why I felt that. I think maybe because we were working in a remote location, and I felt when I gave up a lot. I gave up. I knew I was living in Virginia. I had a lot of friends. I could do a lot after work with people now. I was in Washington, D.C., driving about an hour away. It was a very lonely existence. So I think after a while, it was like, what am I doing here? I can do this, I can do that. So now about a year and a half after I was into the program, I entered the program in July 1986. About 1988, a lot of people retired. Bill Ray retired. Fred Atwater retired. We brought in new people, and the new people came from the past, from the original remote viewing, from the original remote viewers that they were using back in 1976, before CRV even came along. So these people, they said they don't care what methodology we use as long as it's results oriented. At that time, I had met Ed May, and he was working at SRI, and Ed was he didn't care what he said. I don't care if they stand on their head. He said, I just want results. So I said, I'd like to use my automatic writing. So they said, okay, you can do your automatic writing.
Word.
So one night, I can remember being at work, and I sat at my desk, and when all the coordinate remote viewers, Ed Dames called a meeting in the back office. And this is what he would always take his CRV, coordinate remote viewer people, and he would have these meetings, and he would elaborate. And I remember the secretary always telling the boss, she said, he's holding these meetings. You're the boss. He's not the boss. Why does he keep doing that? But he was doing it. And So one night, they all walk by me. They don't say hello. They don't say goodbye. They completely ignore me. And they have these meetings all by themselves. And I'm sitting all by myself being ignored. So I just went home one night and I can remember it was cold. I had a big gray coat on. And I just walked in my apartment and I sat at my dining room table like this and I put my head down. I was so tired I fell asleep. And I woke up the next morning and I thought to myself, what am I doing here? I said, I said, this can't go on. It was like a breaking point for me. So I went to work and I went to my boss, Vern Garvin, and I said, "Do you want to try some remote viewing or some channeling?" And he said, "Sure." So we went over in the back, and he had a target. It was Terry Anderson, who was a hostage in Lebanon.
Yep.
And I started channeling. I said, "This man is." I don't know what I said. I said he's in a country where he's not from this country. I felt like he was under stress. Well, we started to get information. And I can't remember everything I said, but it was enough that I locked on to the target.
What were you given prior to the session?
Nothing.
Were you giving a tasking number?
Just probably
like an 8-digit number or something to that effect, and they're like, "This is the target. That's it."
Yeah, or they may have called it automatic writing session 1 or something.
Right, and that was it.
Yeah.
And then they're like, "Go," and you're like, "There's a man in a foreign country, and he needs help," or whatever it was. Yeah,
So we locked on.
Wow. You know what?
On. So he.
Dang, that's actually pretty good. They just said, "Yeah, start writing, nigga." She just starts writing and gets the shit right. It's pretty valid.
Was kind of excited. He was like, so he came back and the secretary knew what I did, and Fern kind of got excited and he said, "Do you know she does this?" And Jeannie goes, "Yeah, I know. Like, she's been doing it." So we started working.
Okay.
Well, all of a sudden we're doing all the hostages. There were more hostages. So Fern went down to headquarters to talk to Dr. Verona, and he said, "I've got somebody up there that's doing channeling, but look at what we're getting." Well, Dr. Verona, and Fern said, "I'd like to continue with her." And Dr. Verona goes, "By all means." So one Sunday we got a call to go into work because there was a man by the name of Colonel William Higgins who was kidnapped. He was a Marine colonel that went to Lebanon and he was kidnapped. So we got a call because he was just taken and they wanted to know where he was. So we went to headquarters to work. And I had put Higgins, I said he's here and they're moving him. And the analyst said that I was right.
That checks out.
Yeah, they said as soon as I said they're moving him and where he was, they were receiving information from...
Same intel.
This is right. So then they wanted to know where was Higgins kept. So we're looking at pictures in imagery, and I pointed to a location on him. I said, "He's right there. They're keeping him right there." Well, of course, Dames is looking over my shoulder, and he says, "There's nothing there. How can he be there? There's nothing there but woods." So the analyst said, "That's an old picture. You don't know what there is."
That nigga was hating,
could
bro.
Be there now.
That nigga was hating.
So the analyst said,
for sure,
"It's an old picture." So, and of course, everybody, he wouldn't be there. He wouldn't be there. Well, a couple of weeks later, the terrorists, they leave hostages out every once in a while. And there was a German hostage. His last name was Cordes. And they let Cordes out. And so our analysts went to Rhine-Main in Germany to debrief him. And they said, "Where's Higgins?" And he pointed to the same place I pointed. And they said, "But there's nothing there." And Cordes says, "Yeah, but they built a building. They made a building, and that's where Higgins." So
wow. How long after was that, do you think? How much time between when you pointed it and then they received that intel?
I'd say 2 weeks.
2 weeks, a long time.
It's a long time.
It's a long time. It's a long time for them not to do anything at this point where they like, well, maybe she's onto something. Maybe we got to use her a little bit more.
Well, they wanted to use me anyway.
Yeah.
They wanted to, because they were asking about Anderson. Everybody was really worried about Terry Anderson because he was very much. They did not like him.
Yeah.
So what we would do is we would work the hostages, and I would point where they were. I would conduct health. I could tell like health statuses. There was one man, Pohill, and I said he was going to come out with a sore throat, and he came out with throat cancer.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So we would do the reports. We'd work during the day. We would send the reports to the headquarters in the afternoon, and by night my reports were with the Israeli embassy.
Wow.
And the Israeli embassy goes, and they were reporting to their people in Israel. And I had Terry Anderson in the Bekaa Valley one time, and they said, "Oh, he would never be in the Bekaa Valley. It's not the MO of the terrorists." And he was in the Bekaa Valley.
Wow.
Wow.
He was where I said he was.
Incredible.
See, them niggas be hating on her, bro.
Were you working alone on these targets? You had no one else working those targets as well, or if they were, you wouldn't know?
Well, what happened was, since I started working the hostages, well, of course, then the CRV people, they wanted to work the hostages.
It's important work.
Yeah. And also they tried to, they wanted me to stop my channeling. They wanted, they felt that I wasn't, that it was not science, that the channeling and the automatic writing did not have scientific. It needed to be tested.
Right.
They wanted to test it, and they were the ones that were going to test it. And my boss was like, "No way, are you going to test her?" All of a sudden, they came from ignoring me to their full attention. And I said, they didn't look at, why are they bothering me now? They didn't bother me before. What did they
Results.
care? Yeah. So they, of course, then they had to get all involved with the hostages.
Were you seeing any of the other, perhaps employees try this new channeling method? Were they? No. Were you rubbing off on some of them?
No, because my boss said that Dr. Verona decided to call it written remote view.
Okay.
WRV. Now, a lot of people think my boss, Fern, made up that terminology, but it was Dr. Verona. So Fern.
Them niggas was like, yeah, nah, all that chilling around and shit. No, this is remote viewing, nigga. Niggas had to make it theirs in some kind of way because they be hating. I ain't gonna lie, niggas be hating.
Told the group, he would hold meetings, and he said, "Now, if any of you want to learn WRV," he said, "I want you all. Angela will teach you." Well, they're not gonna come to me to teach. I mean, I'm below them. There was no way they were gonna come to me and have me. But they wanted to test me. They wanted to, and I said, "You're not going to test me." I said, "Because you're not a scientist." I said, "You're here to remote view like I am here to remote view." And I think Paul Smith at the time had an art degree. Now, what would he know about, if
Channeling.
but if you're here to remote view, you're not the scientist. You don't have the credentials, so you're not going to touch me.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's where
right.
I guess Dr. Edwin May comes into the fold, because he's definitely someone who's studied remote viewing, I think, more than anyone else in the world.
Hold up. I'll be
studied
right back. I'll be back.
You for what, 30 years, probably 40 years. Like it's a long time to have test subjects, if you will, and have all that data, that he's compiled over the years. Really interesting. So, okay, you're locking onto these targets that are hostages.
Hostages.
And what is it like getting feedback? Are you receiving feedback on a day-to-day basis?
No. They give the feedback whenever they can.
Okay.
Because it's
sensitive too.
And they have to go out. They have to bring the information to the Israelis. By the time they check it out, then come back. But there was other things. I was able to describe some of the terrorists. And there was one point after we worked the hostages maybe close to 2 years, and I always said they were coming out during an August-September time period, and that's when they came out. But there was a period where I felt like I was winding down. It was like how much, you keep doing this and doing this, but there was a time whenever I felt like something changed. So I was in session one time, and we were asking about the hostages, and I said they're getting ready to be released, and I said that there was a man by the name of Jonathan Livingston that was going to help in the release of the hostages. Well, when the analysts heard that, they wanted to know who Jonathan Livingston was. So at that time, they started to look through microfiche to find out who was Jonathan Livingston. They went to the State Department to find out who was this man. Well, one of the analysts ended up at the Pentagon in Colonel Higgins had a wife who was in the military also, and her office was in the Pentagon. And one of the analysts was in her office, and he saw my report sitting there. And he asked her, he said, "Who is Jonathan Livingston?" And she said, "He's a British envoy that was just sent to Lebanon to negotiate the release of the hostages." And the
okay.
reason they couldn't, our
Yeah, she's
analysts
like
could
that.
not find anything
Talk about
on
she's like that.
Terry, on Jonathan Livingston, was because he was English.
Right.
So they did. So
How did you get that name?
it just through channeling.
Through
Yeah.
channeling. You wrote it down.
Jonathan. Yeah, that's how it comes.
That's incredible, but that's so specific. That's
I know,
not like
but that's
not
the
like
odd-
some guy named like some initials JL or something. That's a full name.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's what you. Yeah.
Yeah, she's
yeah.
like that.
That's
nigga.
incredible.
So anyway, when Terry Waite wrote his book, he credits Jonathan Livingston as the guy who
Who freed him? Or yeah.
he broke the nut.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. That's incredible. That is absolutely incredible. Did you ever get to meet any of these people afterwards?
No.
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 Do you think they had an idea? Because this was, again, special access program. Even the people freed, the hostages, other people, they had no idea you were even doing this.
No, but it was what really helped me was the analyst at Defense Intelligence.
Of course.
They were acting on my information.
Wow. What's your conviction level that the government's still doing this, by the way, right now?
I don't know. I mean, I think at the time that we had it, it was a
100%,
very
nigga.
full, robust program. It was congressionally mandated.
Yeah.
We had three purposes. The remote viewing to spy. We were looking at the research and development. How does this work? Paying scientists and psychiatrists or psychologists, and the foreign assessment. What are other countries doing? So I don't know if it's going on such a big way. I don't know.
Got to.
Yeah, or there's obviously, a lot of people think, Stargate moved over to SAIC and these private, government contractors. Yeah, probably where it would live now because it'd be, impossible to subpoena if that's the case. This congressional oversight committee that had to approve the budget, how many times did you have to go to them? Did the program have to go to them? Is it every year?
No, not every year. We were pretty good for 3 or 4 years, but every once in a while somebody would kind of rear their head and say, "Get rid of these psychics." So then you'd have to go and fight.
And when you had to go and fight, does that mean you had to go and
What's up? Like, I don't get, like, why do they do that? Why are they like, yeah, now we don't fuck with you niggas?
remote view for them?
No, you had to. We had Dr. Verona and Dale Graff would go to Congress.
Fight on your behalf.
Yeah, fight on our behalf. No, in fact, I think there was an IG, Inspector General, tried to close us down. And they wanted to come to the office, and Dr. Verona just told us all to stay. We were protected. They didn't. The Congress knew, people knew that there were remote viewers, but we didn't. We didn't have access to these people.
Right, but I mean, also, it is kind of strange that people would want to shut that down. Do you think there was some type of religious reason for that?
If it goes against a person's belief system, they don't want it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's irritating.
So
if
because
it goes against your belief.
So because a motherfucker is a Christian general, he says, nah, fuck all that psychic shit. What are we talking about? we're not gonna have these demons inside of our military. Fuck out of here, bro.
system.
So it was more of like conservative parties within the government that were like, this is against our religion, and this is like work of the devil, so to
Work
speak.
of the devil. Work of the
What
devil.
the fuck, bro?
But yet we had
I cannot believe these niggas, bro. What these niggas on some bullshit.
some people that were very conservative, but they knew the intelligence game. And in intelligence, you collect information no matter how you get it.
Yeah.
So it was surprising that you would think certain people would be against it, but they're like, oh no, it's information. Bring it on, bring it on. And then you had some people totally against it. And then you had people that believed anything what we said. So like Ed May always said, it's always better to work with a skeptic because they're neutral.
That's true.
Okay, yeah.
And it's so interesting to think that like the program was, strong-armed into like almost strong-armed into shutting down, not for lack of results, but for faith reasons.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's different if like niggas not getting no results, but it's like nigga, you nigga, the fuck y'all niggas damn near need me. And motherfuckers want to say, because I'm Christian, Yahweh don't like this. Neck ass nigga.
Ideology.
Yeah, ideology. How interesting, right? Because if you were to ask somebody, why do you think they shut the program down? Like in 1995, they'd gone publicly on the record and said, oh, it just didn't work. And you're like, well, that's 20 years of, something not working. You'd think you'd shut it down prior to that. Yeah.
Yeah. See, what happened with a lot of people, Dr. Verona retired, so we lost a lot of support.
Yeah.
And then we were losing support, and we had a lot of support from Congress, and we weren't treated that well after Dr. Verona retired, so they wanted to transfer us to the CIA in 1995.
Okay, it's natural. Go to the CIA.
And the CIA said they were going to do a study, which we should have seen the writing on the wall. They said they wanted to do a 6-month study to find out whether or not this was really helpful, if remote viewing was really helpful for operations. Well, they hired an outside agency to do a review, but they did not give the outside agency clearances. So now, in the past, if you asked somebody to do something like this, you would give them some type of clearance that they could go in and look at the classified.
Do their work, yeah.
Yeah. They weren't given the clearances. So what did they have? So they came back 6 months later and said, oh no, it doesn't work. It doesn't mean anything.
Right, because they have no access to any of the targets, nothing.
Anything. So I'm back at Defense Intelligence Agency. I'm working as a regular analyst. I'm doing something on Russia or something. I'm in defense industries. I'm working. I get a call from a young guy over at the Pentagon. His name's and he said, I'm a head of special access programs, and I want to know why this program was shut down. And he said, so what happened was all of the history of Stargate was left. It was taken from Fort Meade and it was brought to CIA, because CIA was Congress mandated that CIA take the program, so they had all the information. We were thinking that these people on this study was looking at the information. So the guy said, he said, I want you to come. He says, let's go look at this information. I want to find out why this program was shut down. So I said, okay, I'll take you over, because I knew the boxes. I knew how they were. I could get to the boxes and tell him what was important instead of him taking all day. So we went over, and the boxes were not opened at all, meaning that whoever did this study didn't even look at the unclassified information.
Wow.
And I looked and I said, these boxes were not open. When we closed them up at Fort Meade, they had
seals on them, and
they were never open.
Yeah.
So we opened one box, and there, right on top, was one of Joe McMoneagle's session, and we had feedback from the CIA said that it was just, this information helped us tremendously.
Do you remember which session it was?
No, I don't, but I can remember. And
wow.
So I felt like we were done in.
And then, yeah, I mean, that was kind of you had the odds stacked against you, and so then the CIA goes to 2017. They had to sort of disseminate this information and go public or declassify it all. And what I remember Joe McMoneagle telling me is like what they did is like they parsed through it, they shredded what was highly sensitive, and the rest of it they just kind of mixed up. They shuffled the papers and threw it online, so you have these millions of incoherent sort of papers that are lingering online.
And actually, some of the information that I did wasn't even part of the arc. My information was set aside because they would keep my information separate from the other remote viewers because my boss and even Ed May did not want the other viewers to see what I was doing because of the criticism.
Oh, I see. Not because of the sensitive nature, just because of the way you were doing it.
Because I wasn't right all the time either.
Okay.
So
but no one is.
I know, but so if I was wrong on something, I'll see there she is. It doesn't work.
Okay, yeah.
So as a way to protect me, they were keeping my information separate. So a lot of my information wasn't even there.
So you're doing these targets now. I remember speaking to Dr. Edwin May about how successful this was, and one of the most convincing things that he's told me was 17 out of the 19 intelligence agencies that used Stargate came back, right? 19 intelligence agencies used it, 17 of them came back for new missions. And out of the 20 years that Stargate was around, they did 505 missions. And the Joint Task Force, and this is you have CIA, FBI, all, you name it, DIA, all these people.
Customs, DEA.
That's right.
Army intelligence. Yep. Navy intelligence, Air Force intelligence, all of it.
And were you, most of the time, did you know where the target, did you get feedback from the target? Or would they just be like, here's a number, remote view, and they would take your remote view and you would never hear about it again?
Oh, no, we would get feedback whenever we could.
Okay.
That was one good thing about the analysts that I worked with. I see. That if there was any feedback that could be given, I was given it immediately.
I mean, that'd probably be smart so that way a nigga knows how good then again, some niggas might just be assholes, but I mean, I think that'd be beneficial to everybody. You know what I'm saying? You tell the motherfucker how good they were. It's kind of like if you were to take a test, but not get your results back. It's like, what the fuck? Now I don't know what the fuck I got to improve, what the fuck I did wrong, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah.
Was there any were you only given feedback when something was a hit?
Yeah, but there was a lot of things that they couldn't confirm, like the Libyan vessel. Did
don't think I'm familiar with this.
Gaddafi, they were sure that
was in the ocean?
It was Gaddafi. He had a chemical plant.
Okay.
And they couldn't, it looked like he had this chemical plant, but they couldn't tell, intelligence couldn't tell for sure, and they didn't know how he was getting the chemicals to the plant. So they more or less there was a big question, like is he doing this weapons of mass destruction? So I worked it, and I got the name of a vessel. I called it the potato, like you spell it like potato, and I said it rendezvous. I said this is how it goes from Turkey to Greece or whatever, and then it comes up here, and I said, and I think that's how the chemicals are coming in. So we made a report, and it's sitting on the analyst's desk, and Dr. Verona walked by the analyst, and he saw my report, and he said, do you know anything about this? And the analyst said, well, it's not potato, it's potato. It's a B, not a P. And he goes, that's a Libyan vessel. So Dr. Verona took that report, and he went to the general who was the head of DIA, and then this guy called the general who was the head of operations and said, hey, we think we found a way on how these chemicals are getting into how Gaddafi's getting his chemicals. Mm-hmm. So they just decided to launch a submarine from Greece.
Wow.
To find out if what I said was correct. So my boss Fern and I were sitting at Fort Meade, and Dr. Verona calls up and he goes, "Oh, we're going to launch a submarine based on my information." Well, that really was pressured.
Whoa.
That really was pressure. Oh no.
Oh my gosh. But even, I mean, getting the name, like, I mean, potato, I couldn't
Yeah,
help myself,
yeah.
but I mean, that's a hit.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but, and they did trace it and they followed it, and that it came back like highly probable or highly
I
likely.
see.
And in the intelligence community, that was good enough for me.
Right.
It wasn't like it was it was like they didn't come back and say, "Oh,
You
she's
should blow that joint
smoking,"
up.
No, yeah.
It is, and that was good enough for
You
me
should blow that joint up. Powerful chemical. No, I'm just playing. They probably shouldn't do that.
because that was
So were they able to confirm any of that by sending human intelligence on the ground or
no, because
through satellite or
they were kind of watching the vessel, and I
Yeah.
think the submarine was the one that was kind of
Gathering intelligence.
gathering intelligence, and that
through signals probably? Or,
yeah, and they said it's probably what I said was probably very likely.
So what they do
Whoa.
from
Highly
there?
likely, probable, highly something, but that was good enough. That was good enough. It may have not been that hit,
Oh
but
my gosh.
it was close enough.
Hearing that, like, oh yeah,
Oh wait.
yeah, we
it's gonna
think
be-
you're
okay,
onto
word.
something. We're gonna send a submarine halfway across the world, with people
Word.
on that submarine in a highly stressful, dangerous situation because of something that you wrote down on a piece of paper.
Well, I know, and the thing is that intelligence when you analyze information, it comes from different sources. Well, when we worked the hostages, they came to us because there was nothing else.
That's right.
You couldn't get signals or imagery into Beirut because it was too mountainous, and Clinton started to take out the spies on the ground because it was very, very dangerous.
Right. So what are you left with?
Nothing. So
Yeah.
so the analysts come. What can your people do? And it was the same thing with this. Launching that submarine was based on sole source, me. That's
Whoa.
scary.
Yeah, because that's not something they usually do in the intelligence community. Never, they'll never take a sole source because A, I mean, people's lives are at risk. B, it's a money issue. It's also a political issue. Are you crossing a boundary somewhere? These are all very sensitive things to be able to, that you have to approve before deploying any of these assets. And so, yeah, normally there wouldn't be a sole source of intelligence.
Wow, that's wild though.
Yeah,
And
unless
They're
Like-
like only like nigga because of you we're doing some crazy. That's kind of wild. I ain't gonna lie.
hostages there weren't on this. And I can
Wow.
remember when Dr. Verona went to, I guess, the head of the generals, the head of DIA and
I think when it finishes this part and gets here, we'll end the video.
the operation, I guess he said, and this is the same person that said this. Oh yeah, this is the same person that gave you this, and this. I'm like, oh yeah, we'll send up this submarine and.
So he was
Wow.
hyping you up.
LOL.
Yeah, he was Team Angela.
Yeah.
Very
So-
cool.
Shout out to him,
Whoa.
bro, for not
Yeah,
being an
that
asshole.
That must have been something. Did the other cohorts or the other people in the program, did they catch wind of this happening?
On the feedback, Yeah, because we would have meetings on the feedback.
Did they look at you differently after that happened?
Their jaws would just drop. I mean, they couldn't even look at me.
I bet.
They couldn't even look at me.
I mean, that's something else. Well, there's a reason you were there, and I think maybe they were starting to understand that. That you were handpicked for a reason. That's cool. That's incredible. So after this, were you ever given, because you dealt with a lot of hostages? I assume you dealt with also a lot of probably like weapons of mass destruction, nuclear silos, like this type of thing. Were you ever given targets that were a little strange during this time, or were they always pretty
know
much along the same lines?
Pretty much.
Yeah, we're gonna end it right here. All right, we're gonna end it right here. This was a pretty interesting video. If you guys want a part 2, let me know. Comment down below. Like the video. I love you all. Catch my next video. Peace. The freak out. You smell me. Hey.